What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Friday edition of Back Your Play with Q. As always, I'm your host, Rich Quinones, from our good friends over at Play It Again Sports, 1450 Clemensburg Road in Deptford, New Jersey. Check them out. Use sports equipment and more. As always, follow us on Twitter at Rich Q on Q, YouTube channel, Rich Q on Q. And there he is on location. How about that? Our NFL Insider Lloyd Vance, covering, I believe it's the 14th annual HBCU, the Black College Football Hall of Fame. You're down in Hotlanta right about now.
Yeah, Q. I'm excited to join you from here. Been working on selection committee since 2010 or so, and it's a great opportunity to be around some of the greats of the game and travel down here to Atlanta, and we'll have a nice event and get to talk to some of the guys I haven't seen in a number of years. So the majority of the guys are veteran type players that you get to this event. And some of the inductees are names like Jimmy Marsalis, who was a great corner for the Kansas City Chiefs and Hank Stram days, and Johnny Walton, a quarterback who I followed when he was filled up with the Eagles when I was a kid. We're inducting him. He's out of Elizabeth City. So
CFL MVP in '69, right? CFL was on the taxi squad, I think, right? With the Rams back in '69, and then eventually went to the CFL.
Yeah, Johnny Walton's a great story because he played in so many leagues and tried so many times to get to the big stage, and he's a guy that after a number of years of work, he got that great opportunity from Dick Vermeil to join the Eagles, and then he went to the USFL. So you're right, Q. He had a lot of stops, but he was a tremendous quarterback.
Also, I believe Henry Lawrence, right? Florida A&M, Leslie Frazier, Tyrone McGriff from Florida A&M as well. Elijah Pitts, I believe, as well, part of that class. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's pretty damn good class, man. I mean, the one thing I remember, McGriff was Mr. Irrelevant when he was drafted in '80 by the Steelers. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame, and unfortunately, he passed away at a very young age. The most notable to me, I mean, I for my money, I thought one of the best when we talk about secondary guys, and again, I believe he's going to be enshrined. Albert Lewis as well, correct?
Correct. Albert Lewis is coming out of Grambling State, another player out of SWAC, an all-time great from that school. Obviously, the Grambling has a rich history, and the two men that started this organization, Black College Football Hall of Fame, are Doug Williams and James Shack Harris. They're both from Grambling State, and I've talked to Eddie Robinson's family over the years, and there's such a great tradition with that organization and that football team. We almost say Grambling State was the subway alumni for African Americans, almost like Notre Dame is for a lot of Irish Catholics. A lot of people just root for Grambling State because they know the name and Eddie Robinson and the history that comes with it in terms of Black college football and the overall game itself.
Yeah, Pitts, 13th round, Green Bay, 1961 NFL draft. Had an opportunity to play for Boston in the AFL, and obviously it worked out playing with Green Bay, 5-time NFL champ, 2-time Super Bowl champ with the Packers. Out of all these guys, who would you say, I mean, they're all deserving, but who would you say probably had the most notable mark in college and then in the NFL?
Wow. And that's something we always debate. And when we're talking about these guys, you have to look at their total resume and whether it's their college accolades. A lot of times we really don't even know about. You talk about Tyrone McGriff, interesting guy. He was a Kodak All-American, so he got to be on the show with Bob Hope. So that shows you what a great player he was. And they won a national championship at the highest level in terms of 1AA at the time. Florida A&M, when he was there, they won the overall championship over all the teams. So, this shows you the impact of Tyrone McGriff. In terms of the class, I think everybody is definitely going to be interested in Leslie Frazier's story. Leslie Frazier is a guy, he was on the Chicago Bears. He comes out of Alcorn State, another guy like Boynell Young, kind of unheard of coming out of Alcorn State, but he was a smooth corner and a guy who covers well. And then you talk about his accolades in terms of coaching. He's been all around the National Football League. He was former head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. Right now, he stepped away from the Buffalo Bills as defensive coordinator, but he may be the highlight of this group. But it's another great group, and I'm glad to be part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. We look forward to the coverage as well. Lloyd Vance joining us Friday edition of BYP with Q from our good friends over at Played Against Sports. Lloyd covering the 14th annual Black College Football Hall of Fame in Hotlanta, which is pretty unique. All right, so NFL wise, I guess two of the big stories. One kind of transpired within the last week, and we thought this could be an issue going forward in the NFL. And that, of course, is when we learn that another player gets pinched for gambling, this time for the Indianapolis Colts on Monday. The latest team involved in this scandal, Isaiah Rodgers, is the latest player caught in violation, investigated for placing hundreds of wagers and even bet, apparently, allegedly, on Colts games. I mean, look, whether it's a notable player or not, it's just another horrible look for the NFL. And, this, we dealt with this last year, right? With Ridley, who, obviously wanted to make amends with these transgressions. But the NFL has put themselves in this position because every time you turn around, whether it's pre, post, halftime, any weekly spot, it's, picks, whatever it is, it's always brought to you by X, Y, and Z. So, I mean, does this surprise you at all? And what measure do you think the NFL is going to take now regarding Rodgers?
Yeah, he's another player where they're going to talk to him, and unfortunately, Q, you and I talked about this a while ago in terms of when gambling came to the NFL. It was always the league's dirty secret, and people always had their bookie and all that. Now there's Pandora's box open. To me, I think the best thing that the owner should do is, rather than having these rules like guys can't gamble when they're in the locker room or on a team facility, just don't allow them to gamble at all. You know what I mean? It's just.
But how do you monitor that? I mean, they can have
Exactly.
buddies that open accounts and give them money.
Yeah. So, you just fear for their integrity of the game. And I think that's why they're trying to crack down on some of these guys. And I think the majority of players that I've talked to, they just don't do it. You know what I mean? It's just Pandora's box, and they don't want to kind of get on somebody's radar. But, so some of these younger guys, they may not worry too much about, and then the consequences come behind it. So, I think the league is going to have more conversations in terms of monitoring, in terms of rules around this, and maybe just allow them to bet on other sports, but betting on football and just opening that up to some kind of legality and rules infraction. I just don't know if it's worth it in terms of what it brings to the table for a player.
No doubt. Like, what are you risking? And we know if it's, $5 million on a game, we know there's going to be a swing on the line in Vegas. So that kind of opens up eyes. Regardless, again, Lloyd Vance, our NFL Insider, on location covering the 2023 Black College Football Hall of Fame induction ceremony in Atlanta. All right, the other big news, well, a couple things. So it looks like, pardon me, Panthers have decided they're going to go with the young gunslinger in Bryce Young. Frank Reich already made that decision. You got Dalton as the backup. I'm a little surprised he's saying right now, look, he's taking good reps, making the most of his opportunity, but you're naming a starter June 9th.
Yeah, Q, it is a no-brainer. Everyone knew when they drafted Bryce Young, they traded up to get him, and he was their guy. So Carolina's going to go with him. He's their new future, and hopefully he can build upon that. Obviously, they have been hurting for such a while since Cam Newton had retired, and they have not had that guy. And they want to have him come in right away and be their starter, have no questions around whether he's their guy or not. And it reminds me a lot being here in Atlanta. I remember when Matt Ryan started for the Falcons way back in 2008. He came right in as the established starter, and then that team kind of built from there. They actually made the playoffs that season, as well as the Baltimore Ravens, who had a rookie starter in Joe Flacco. So you can have success with a rookie quarterback. I know Brock Purdy stepped in last year late and did some good things for the Niners. So that they're trying to catch some lightning in a bottle and see if Young can help them build upon his great resume, bringing it over from Alabama.
Interesting you mentioned the 49ers with Lance, Purdy, and Sam Darnold on the roster. And now there's talk, well, I mean, Darnold might be playing himself in position to win that starting job in San Francisco. And look, the way their defense is constructed, I don't think you really have to ask too much. I mean, listen, Purdy played well last year prior to the injury in the NFC Championship game against the Eagles. I just feel like if they name Darnold the starter, right? Because Lance coming off injury, Purdy coming off injury, you're probably a 3-pick, Sam Darnold game away, having to turn around and go back to Purdy. And then where does that leave Trey Lance too? I mean, he really might be on the outside looking in.
Yeah, because it's going to be interesting, and it is a really, is really Shanahan going to allow this to kind of open up as a true quarterback battle and see which one of these three guys is the best.
What do you think?
I still think if Purdy is healthy, as well as he played last year, and everybody talked about his understanding the playbook, and he was an extension of the coach on the field. I think he may be their guy. But you talk about Trey Lance, he's sitting there, and they brought him in, and he was their guy at one point, then he got injured. So, revolving door quarterback carousel for the 49ers. I think in the end it will go with the guy that best and works in their system, and I think they believe in Brock Purdy, and he's going to be their guy. Maybe Trey Lance gets his opportunity in training camp, mini camps, to kind of show what he can do as Brock Purdy comes back from that elbow injury. But right now, I'd have to say it's Purdy's job to lose.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't put anything past these coaches because it's all about business decisions at the end of the day. Lloyd Vance joining us on a Friday edition of Back Your Play with Q. Rich Quinones here, NFL writer, researcher, historian, PFWAA award winner, and again down there covering the Black College Football Hall of Fame, the 14th annual in Atlanta, part of that selection committee as well. All right, so we talk about the running back position, right? And we know that it's not a marquee position anymore. I think we could assume over the last 15, 20 plus years, these running backs are mercenaries. And now we're seeing the news that the Vikings are going to release Dalvin Cook. And I put up the numbers regarding Cook. I mean, it is kind of interesting when you think about it. So 14.1 million in cap space. They'll save 11 million if he would have played this season. And maybe it has to do with the 1,500 touches that he just amassed after last season. He's 28 years of age, but let me give you some of these names right now. Henry, Cook, Taylor, Chubb, 104, 108, 110, 125 yards respectively that they average on the ground. Is this just a situation where Minnesota feels as though he's 28, he's logged a lot of touches, he's logged a lot of carries, and we've got enough running backs depth-wise, running back by committee, where we can save some money and, again, we need fresh legs back there, younger legs.
Yeah, Q, it's a thankless business when you're running back, and it's just not like the old days when United came along and everybody had, their guy, whether it was Tony Dorsett, Earl Campbell, or whomever, who was going to carry the ball and they were going to get all their touches. And then basically, I know a lot of these guys went to other places to end their career, but these guys spent about 10 years with most of their team. So, the Cook's the latest guy. He's very banged up. That shoulder injury has bothered him for a number of years. The shoulder, he was playing with a harness. He kept popping in and out last year. And they feel like Madison, who was his backup and came in and gave them some good carries when Cook was out, is going to be their guy. So you're going to see this more and more in the National Football League. We saw it with the Chiefs with Pacheco and that group of stables. They're just going to spread carries around, spread touches around, and they may have a guy, like a James White, who's a great pass catcher, and they may have a guy, who's a strong runner to goal line. So, they're going to use everybody in terms of spreading the wealth around, keeping these guys healthy, and whoever's a hot hand, that's who the coach is going to go with on Sunday in these big games and in the playoffs. So, unfortunate for Cook. I remember him coming out of Florida State, and he's had a pretty good career for the Vikings. A guy who's put up some very good numbers, but he's going to have to find a new home right now.
Yeah, and speaking of which, I know there's some talk maybe, and again, it is final. They did release him about 37 minutes ago. Maybe Miami, maybe Denver. listen, I mean, here's a running back, 4 straight Pro Bowl seasons, um, relatively healthy, logs a lot of carries. I'll throw your curveball on this one. What if the Giants turn around and they just let, Saquon walk? Now you got Dalvin. Now Dalvin Cook was released, so whatever you offer him on the table, you offer him, right? I mean, so you can get him uh, low rent, if you will, for a year or so. There's been talk about Miami Dolphins and McDaniel with a couple of his comments. I mean, look, there's going to be a lot of teams out there monitoring who he's talking to, who he's visiting. But I mean, it's a what have you done for me lately league, right? And I know Saquon's coming off a monster season, and I know it's taboo to say, and I know Giant fans are going to get their feathers all ruffled by me saying it. But ultimately, we said this a month ago. I think the Saquon Barkley situation is going to get worse before it gets better with the Giants. So you have to start to think about a plan B.
Yeah, Q. It is a business first and foremost, and Saquon's going to make a lot of money this season, and they're going to pay a lot in terms of a running back with salary cap. I know this is probably his last season for the Giants, but if you can bring in that competition or possibly a replacement, why not? And that's what all the general managers around the league are thinking about. They're thinking about their next step, and they're thinking about the season starting already. So if they could bring Cook in and he could be a weapon for him, that could be possibly a good landing spot for him. And Cook's probably going to want to go to the best situation. Some of these guys, they want to go to a winning organization. Some of them want more money.
Fair point.
I tend to think that he maybe wants to win at this stage in his career. So,
what teams give him? I mean, Miami, Denver. Would you think Miami? Young quarterback, all these offensive weapons, a little more of an aggressive head coach in McDaniel. You're still playing in the AFC East, so you're still dealing with potentially the Jets now with Rodgers and the Buffalo Bills with Allen, not so much New England, but still, but you're in warm weather, even though, again, they played in that dome in Minnesota. I don't know. I mean, they don't need him, but he would certainly be an upgrade to that offense. They're still going to be able to run the football.
Yeah, he's going to get a good opportunity somewhere. I'll throw a crazy one at you. His brother plays for the Buffalo Bills. Maybe he wants to go play with him, So these things will shake out in the next couple of weeks. I'm sure his agent will be making some calls. Every team, as we know, has 90 players on it, and they'll definitely find a spot for Cook. And they may say the running back position's undervalued, but every team wants that guy who can do a variety of things. And that's what Dalvin Cook can do. He can catch the football. He can pick up the blitz. He's strong in short yardage situations. So he's a back that can do a number of things. So I think a lot of teams are going to want his services. Maybe even Dallas Cowboys. Think about them. They always want to establish the run. And Tony Pollard's a little banged up coming off an injury. And why not bring an insurance policy?
Yeah, I mean, these running backs, like I said, the life expectancy 3, 4, 5 years. If you can stretch it out even longer, God bless you. Again, Lloyd Vance joining us in Atlanta, covering the Black College Football Hall of Fame, and nice little backdrop. Good stuff tomorrow. I'm sure it's going to be an exciting time. All the players and coaches are certainly worthy of this honor and praise. Lastly, before I let you get out of here, and I know it's fun to talk about, even though it's a moot point now, but the alleged reports or rumors that Russell Wilson, the Eagles were, in the Russell Wilson sweepstakes, and he kind of, kiboshed a potential trade to Philadelphia, which I think, listen, at the end of the day, it works out perfectly. And as much as I killed him last year and Hackett, maybe he has a much better season, year number 2. But for the Eagles, they got the quarterback they want, and they paid him in Jalen Hurts. I mean, isn't it funny how sometimes, the best moves, the best trades are the ones that are never made?
Yeah, it's crazy once this stuff comes out. It always seems that the Eagles, they were like, oh, we were in the mix on that, and we kind of stepped away from it. A lot of times you don't even hear these things unless you're talking to one of the guys, in the off season, one of the decision makers. But you can wonder what would have happened there if he had been with the Eagles. Obviously, a lot of Eagles fans are going to say he had a terrible season with the Denver Broncos, but I think a lot of that has to do with Nathaniel Hackett and whether he worked in his offense. So, but everything worked out. I think Jalen Hurts is a young ascending quarterback out there, and he led him to the Super Bowl, and the sky's the limit for him. So I think Russell Wilson will have a bounce back this season. He now has a coach that kind of believes in him and the system that they're going to be running. So it's going to be interesting to see how both those situations play out.
Yeah, until Peyton takes his parking space. So I just had to throw that out there. All right, pal. Listen, next week we got to get back on it off season, breaking down the divisions. We'll start to look at some futures. We know that the NFL never stops. We know that, but have a good time out there. I know you're going to hustle. I know you'll get some good sound, some good photos and whatnot. Enjoy it. I saw the families out there as well with you. So that's a pretty cool thing to kind of experience, right?
Yeah, it's fun. My son came with me, and he's looking forward to, who am I going to meet? Who am I going to meet? I said, well, there's going to be a lot of former players there, and then a lot of Atlanta Falcons, Arthur Blank, several people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they're hosting it, right? They're sponsoring it. The Falcons are sponsoring this event.
Yes, they're one of the lead sponsors. So Arthur Blank and several members of the team are typically there. So
awesome.
He's looking for, he wants to meet, Pitts and some of these younger guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? It's a great experience, right? And it's a pretty cool thing, father and son, to share. So have fun with it. Look forward to seeing what you come back with as far as photos and some footage and whatnot. And we'll do it again next week, pal. Lloyd Vance joining us as always at Lloyd Vance does a great job. Our NFL Insider, writer, researcher, historian, PFWA award winner, and BCHOF selection committee. He's out there covering the 14th annual Black College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta. Kind enough to join us on a Friday edition of Back Your Play with Q. We'll do it again next week, pal. Appreciate you.
All right, Q. Thanks for having me on.
You got it.